Good morning, everyone. We're off to a great start. I wanted to welcome everyone for today's service, Growing Our Gardens and Growing Ourselves. This is our October 4th service. I'm just about to hit enter on some announcements in the chat here. The major highlights of that are that we are seeking ancestor photos needed for our October 20th service to bring us all together, part of the upcoming Memory Tree event. The board will be, the church board will be meeting today, right after service, starting at 11:15 via Zoom. If any member of the congregation wishes to attend that, please reach out to Laura Wake. Also, an announcement from a short time ago, we have entered our discernment process to begin discussing whether to call Eileen Casey Campbell. There are several dates coming up over the next several weeks to ask specific questions and enter into that discernment process. If there are any other announcements, please put them into the chat. And at this time, I would like to light the chalice. Let me see if my matches actually work today. All right. We light this beacon of, excuse me. Shoot. Let's try that again. All right. We gather at this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, a sign for a quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. I would like to welcome Petra Page-Mann as our worship host for opening words.
Good morning, friends. Some opening words from my dear friend, Leah Penniman of Soulfire Farm. Let your heart be filled with the impossibly powerful love you have for your children, for your grandchildren. Now open your heart to the truth that your ancestors in this very moment, in this room, have that much love for you, multiplied and amplified through every generation. You may feel alone. You are so not alone. Leah Penniman.
Our opening hymn today is number 73, The Chant for the Seasons, and we're going to do all 4 seasons. We're going to pause and see if we can get it to do what we want it to do. Thomas, can you please click stop share? Do you have that available on your computer?
Yes. Oh, that didn't work. I think I just paused the recording.
Okay, yes, that's very good. I see it came back. Can you do an unspotlight of us, please? There it goes. Okay. Oh, now what do we have? Okay, just a second. There we go. All right. We're going to try something different. All here. And let's try this. And then share. And then let's see.
I should probably interject some words here
Well,
Okay.
that we just got a new upgrade that just came in. And things were working fine in the experimental time, but now they're giving us a little bit of grief. And that seems to be the way of technology.
we'll just do it now. Okay, so now we have some words. So I'll just do a little quick introduction and we'll sing Chant for the Seasons. Summertime has turned the star wheel, autumn is upon us. Summertime has turned the star wheel, autumn is upon us. Sweet the angling sun, sweet upon the air, the smell of blue mist rising. Summertime has turned the star wheel, autumn is upon us. Glorious the trees, glorious the sight of rust, leaves falling, falling. Summertime has turned the star wheel, autumn is upon us.
I'd just like to say how much I love you, Bill. You are so graceful and gracious, and I love you all.
Thank you, Petra. Good. That's saving me from smacking the computer with a hammer or something. No, just kidding. So we can't get the words to change, unfortunately. Maybe I'll just go ahead and sing the other verses.
Please do that, Bill.
Okay, and it has repeats, so if you hear a part that you just heard and you hear it repeating, then sing along. Okay, I'll leave a pause and Eileen can edit all of that out. Here we go. Autumn cold has turned the star wheel, winter is upon us. Autumn cold has turned the star wheel, winter is upon us. Gray the windy storms, cold upon our cheek, the wet rain glistens, glistens. Autumn cold has turned the star wheel, winter is upon us. Leaping is the fire, golden in the glass, the cider glows like amber. Autumn cold has turned the star wheel, winter is upon us. Winter rains have turned the star wheel. Winter rains have turned the star wheel, springtime is upon us. Winter rains have turned the star wheel, springtime is upon us. Sharp the smell of loam, bursting in our eyes, the turrets of the tulip. Winter rains have turned the star wheel, springtime is upon us. Greening is the grass, soft upon our brows, the sunlight warm caresses. Winter rains have turned the star wheel, springtime is upon us. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel, summer is upon us. hovering above the hot and yellow hillside. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel. Summer is upon us. Crickets in the night, chirping in our ears, the sound of moonlit music. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel. Summer is upon us.
Bill, if you'll stop your screen sharing.
Got it. Thank you.
Bill, that was so beautiful. And thank you to everyone singing along. And I would love to share a story for all ages, for children of all ages especially. And I bring to you this morning, friends, an ear of corn. This is an ear of corn that I grew, but let's back up. This has been grown for 6,000 years, this corn. The ancestors of this corn, the ancestors of all of us. And so let's just take a moment, Ms. Frizzle style, and remember that 6,000 years ago in the Peruvian Andes, there were people eating seeds and starting to save them, and from grasses that I confess I simply would have mown in my lawn. They were really short and small seeds, but some of them were larger than others, and maybe some plants had sweeter seeds than others. I don't know, and I would love to know, but something was compelling our ancestors to save the seeds of little tiny grasses. And through the act of saving those seeds and sharing those seeds as generously as they could, those people 6,000 years ago in the Peruvian Andes, could they have imagined that now corn is grown on millions of acres of 6 of the 7 continents? And I don't know about you, but I've definitely eaten corn in the last 24 hours. We had tacos last night. And you'll probably eat corn again in the next 24 hours. Corn somehow comprises about 60% of the calories that we collectively as a human species on this planet consume in a day, which is just kind of crazy to me, how much our species relies on corn. And if it's of course well beyond food at this point as well. And so when we save seeds, we have no idea what world we are leaving for all generations of all species to come. I love imagining those people in the Peruvian Andes who simply were saving these seeds, not having any, I don't think, imagination of how profoundly they would affect their human family. And so today, and all days, every day we eat, every dollar we spend, let's remember we are more powerful, and our cultural imagination is more beautiful than perhaps we dare to dream.
Thank you. That definitely sparked some ideas or sort of thoughts in my mind. Now is the part of our service where we share joys and sorrows. We are a community that holds one together in our celebrations and in our pain. Please share your joys and sorrows in the chat box on Zoom or in other comment sections. If you're joining us from YouTube, know that whatever your heart is holding, we are there with you. Please share in the chat box. We hold these joys and sorrows in our hearts, whether they are spoken or unspoken, together. Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. If you would like to give to this morning's offering, you can find a few ways on the screen momentarily. I unfortunately don't have that link ready at hand, but I will find it shortly in the chat box. You can give online at at canandaiguauu.org/contact or physically by mailing a check to the church. In any case, note that you would like your gift to go towards today's offering. We will share 1/4 of our monthly service with our monthly service partner, which this month is the League of Women Voters, very apt for the upcoming election. So, at this time, we are welcoming centering words to be shared from Petra.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you all. Some words from Robin Wall Kimmerer. It is a sign of respect and connection to learn the name of someone else, a sign of disrespect to ignore it, and yet the average American can name over 100 corporate logos and less than 10 plants. Is it then a surprise we have accepted a political system that grants personhood to corporations and no status at all for wild rice and for redwoods? Learning the names of plants and of animals is a powerful act of support for them. We learn their names and their gifts. This opens the door for reciprocity. Robin Wall Kimmerer.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirs of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
First, Bill, thank you. I love that song so much, but that love of that song pales to my love of you and my deep memory of singing that. It's been 30 years now, and it's makes me cry every time. So thank you. In the best of ways, tears in my eyes. Friends, it is so wonderful to be back together with you again. Thank you for welcoming me, and I'd love to begin this morning with a question. Really, always with questions. What is a seed? What is a seed? There are so many ways to answer. And certainly, like any good question, there is no one answer. And here is perhaps how I would respond this morning. A seed is a living, breathing being. Seeds literally respire just like you and I, and they have ancestors just like you and I, and may one day become ancestors, as many of us already are. And certainly, for the record, when people ask me if Matthew and I have children, I say yes, and great, 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 great grandchildren, and you can eat them. I only mention you can eat them if I think they have a sense of humor, as I believe you do, my courageous Unitarian Universalist friends. And so, yes, I love imagining the ancestors, the stories of these seeds, and especially in this moment that we inhabit, where I wonder incessantly how we move forward and become good ancestors. In this time, I look to these seeds, and I love to remember cilantro, these tiny little spherical seed, golden, a spice on the spice trades. It was moved thousands of miles across the Saharan desert on the backs of camels, and every single cilantro seed carries baked into its genetic makeup the remembrance of that time. And also the wettest season that it somehow survived. And maybe some of them didn't survive, but the ones that did, that remembrance is baked into that seed. And the hottest season, and everything that has ever happened to a cilantro seed is somehow, that resilience is encoded deep within the being of every cilantro seed and of every bean seed. This is a Haudenosaunee skunk bean, and perhaps you recognize the word Haudenosaunee. Certainly you recognize the word Iroquois. And I grew up using the word Iroquois for our indigenous people whose lands we now occupy. So many of us, certainly I will speak for myself, on this land in Naples, where Foolish and Seeds, where I farm, we occupy the land of the Haudenosaunee, Seneca. And so this bean has been grown, likely even in this valley, for well over 1,000 years. And I've grown a few seeds, and I really like beans. So I've grown a lot of beans, of dry beans, and no bean, no dry bean even compares to the productivity of this Haudenosaunee skunk bean. And it's just so gosh darn resilient, no matter what the season is. And I have to imagine that there are lots of things that I cannot even imagine, but I also imagine that part of that resilience is founded in the fact that this bean has evolved with these soils, with these climates, as they have changed, as they have even before this new era of climate change being so anthropocentric. And so, yes, this seed sends shivers down my spine every time, for a lot of other reasons too. But let me tell you some stories about some other seeds, especially in these times. So I, in general, just love growing seeds, basically because I love to eat. And I love to eat, namely because I love to share things that I love with people that I love. So among all of the other sadnesses of our individual and collective experience of COVID-19, the fact that I can't even share a meal of these beans and of this polenta with so many people that I love, it profoundly saddens my heart. That these foundational ways that I connect and nourish myself with these foods, with these seeds, are somehow a little more difficult. But there are ways we transcend, and here we are. I just hats off to all of you at UUCC for transforming, for pivoting in this time in such a profound way. And I'd love to tell you a little story about peanuts, because I grew up in my father's garden. Some of you perhaps know Ralph Mann my beloved father. And I will always be so grateful that I grew up in my father's garden, and we grew lots of things. And we saved a few seeds, and we didn't think anything of it. If you had asked little 7-year-old Petra what she loved to do, I'm quite sure I never would have told you seed saving. And I'm quite sure I probably wouldn't have even told you gardening. I definitely wouldn't have told you brushing my teeth. It was just something that we did. And I'll always be so grateful that my father gave me this gift of so foundationally understanding these feedback loops and the essence of reciprocity in this way. So we grew lots of things, tons of lettuce, so many carrots, so much cilantro, tomatoes. But one year I was 7 years old and we grew peanuts, and we grew 5 peanut plants, and we harvested 5 peanuts at the end of the year. And I announced to my father, I remember it very vividly, that was a waste of garden space. And I've never been a practical person ever. So that experience in my father's garden convinced me that growing peanuts was extravagantly futile in our short seasons here in the Finger Lakes, here in Zone 5. And seeds, again and again, remind me that my imagination is the limit, and that the land and that regional adaptation is the language of resilience, that we can grow so much more than we would ever imagine possible. So the fates, in her infinite irony, Petra and Matthew start Fruition Seeds in 2012, and this marvelous man on the Upper Peninsula of Michigan reaches out to us, and he has these regionally adapted, Northern Hardy Valencia peanuts. And I am a very nice person. I at least try to be a very nice person. And so I didn't laugh at him outright. I said, "Oh yes, I'd love to try them. That's remarkable." And in my mind, I thought, I'll give it a try, but I know what's going to happen. I know. And so we grew them that next season. And that season happened to be the coldest season on record. A groundhog also moved into that bed in early September. I didn't think those peanuts had a chance. And yet, we harvested 23 peanuts average per plant that year. I was flabbergasted. I was also flabbergasted to learn that, crude protein just isn't digestible by mammals, no matter who they are generally. So don't worry, your peanuts are not going to be consumed by your voles, by your groundhogs, or really by you without feeling good. I highly recommend you, at least roast, if not thoroughly cook your peanuts otherwise, before enjoying them. But fast forward, peanuts, we've grown them every year since, and continuing to regionally adapt them with each season. And we've had, yes, that coldest season on record. We also had the hottest season on record. They averaged 42 peanuts per plant that year. So yes, in the last 9 years that we have been farming here at Fruition Seeds, we've had the warmest season on record and the driest, as well as the hottest and the wettest. And I don't think it's going to stop. And this is why we save seeds. I'd also like to share that when I was a little girl in my father's garden, we thought we couldn't grow watermelon. I mean, we could grow watermelon, but we wouldn't necessarily eat watermelon. It'll grow, but they would rarely mature to get a full ripe watermelon. And so fast forward, collaborating with Cornell and other fine humans, I now know that you just need the right seeds to have a different experience to actually grow watermelon. And it's not hard, but it does require a different kind of seed than what we would find at a big box store. Turns out all seeds are regionally adapted in 2020 if you live in the Central Valley of California, which is where, the vast majority of this continent's fresh produce is grown. So that's where all of the vast majority of plant breeders are concentrating their energy and attention to regionally adapt their varieties to that region. So yes, if you grow in the Central Valley of California, basically any seed commercially available is going to do fabulously for you. If you want to grow peanuts in short seasons, watermelons in short seasons, red, ripe 5-foot peppers in short seasons, covered in 30 plus ripe red peppers by the end of the season, this is where we can't leave this up to the professionals. We do this. We as seed savers, we as community members, we as eaters do this work. So I would love to share another little story that keeps me warm at night, at least when I remember it, which is sometimes hard, because there's so many times where I feel really ill-equipped to be up to the job, whether it's doing anything meaningful about climate change, whether it's having a business, Fruition Seeds, that doesn't just perpetuate the same settler colonial constructs, whether it's whiteness and how we actually confront white supremacy and have real conversations about this around our Thanksgiving tables, at our children's school tables, around our boardrooms where we think we have all the answers, that we could never be racist. How do we have these conversations? And here is a little analogy that I hope will resonate for you as it does for me. If I want a tomato, like this great big juicy tomato that's super succulent and is just like, you don't even need the bacon and the lettuce for the BLT. You can just put it on a slice of sandwich. No, you can just eat it like an apple and it's all you want for lunch. That's the kind of tomato I'm talking about. And that's the kind of tomato that I'm talking about. Like, how can we talk about white supremacy and actually have a meaningful, transformative experience for us all and compost our grief into the seeds of the next generation? That's the tomato. So when I'm like, how do I find this tomato? I remember that I need to first plant a seed, a tiny little tomato seed that kind of doesn't look anything like the tomato that I want to eat. I have to plant this seed in the darkness, is the beautiful irony, right? I have to plant this seed in the darkness and hope that it sprouts. And it may not. And that's why we save many seeds and so many seeds. And when they sprout green. It's not red yet. And I have to take that sprout and cultivate it, water it, feed it, plant it, weed it. I have to make sure that I'm protecting that sprout, even though I don't even really know what it is, and maybe it's going to turn into a tomato. But this is the kind of faith that I am after, friends. This faith that this little green, very potentially vulnerable, but also has all the potential of the world baked inside it, all of that resilience of thousands of years of collaborations with humans, of millions of years of evolution, deep inside every cell of this plant. And then I have to trellis it. Oh man, it's starting to get heavy. And without that trellising, it's just going to fall over and break right at the stem. And now there are flowers, yellow flowers. But I thought I was growing a tomato. A yellow tiny flower is not a big red juicy tomato, and I'm hungry. How do we do this work? And then that tomato starts to form. That fruit finally from that yellow flower starts to grow, and first it's the size of a marble, and it's green. I thought I was growing a red tomato. And it's growing, and it's growing larger. And then who knows, maybe it will be a purple tomato. Maybe it will be a red and orange tomato. Maybe it'll be all those colors combined. Maybe it's actually a cantaloupe. I don't know what that fruit is going to look like. But there is this faith that the hope is this foundation that continues to feed that faith in this this feedback loop of how we fertilize our civic imaginations of what's possible in us and also in each other. Because just like we can imagine what a world is like where white supremacy is something that we talk about as a historical phenomena, wait, how do we even get there? Knowing that we probably won't, a seed is never done refining itself. So yes, these are ways that whether it's me wondering if I am the person that can actually build fruition seeds and be the kind of change personally and as a business that I would hope we are capable of. I need to remind myself of that because there's plenty of days that I feel like a seed in the dark and plenty of days where I'm like, I'm ready for the tomato. And there's plenty of days when I need to remind myself of these stories. And certainly in our movements and in our friendships, when they start to fracture, especially, there's so much weight and pressure in this moment. But if I want a tomato, I need to plant a seed. And let us be gentle with ourselves and each other as we hold ourselves in those processes. And I'd love to lift up here that, you know, are we stewarding the seeds? Are we saving the seeds? Or are they saving us? Michael Pollan in The Botany of Desire has this wonderful sentence, this sentiment that I love so much, that agriculture is the brilliant plan of the grasses to get back at the trees. I'll say that again, that agriculture is the brilliant plan of the grasses to get back at the trees. And so quick check-in, corn is a grass. Take a look at those segmented stems. Next time you see a corn stalk, next time you're out just in your lawn, go ahead and look at the way those segments and those seeds are sheathed, and you'll say, yes, they are relations. So yes, corn, P.S., by the way, as I mentioned earlier, grown on millions of acres of 6 of the 7 continents. It's not only feeding us, it is our fuel and so many other things in our world. Corn, a grass. Is it humans that are planting these seeds, or is it the seeds that are compelling the humans? Michael Pollan in The Botany of Desire has this wonderful scene where he's just underneath an apple tree covered in spring blossoms, just buzzing with bees. And he's just wondering, is it the apple compelling all of those bees to pollinate her flowers? Or is it the bees that's like, yes, I am making honey and doing, you know, who's doing this? Who is doing this? We all are doing this. And one of the things that I notice about myself, first and foremost, and our species, but certainly our white culture, our patriarchal or capitalist settler colonial culture, is that we think we just arrived and we put a flag on this continent and we said, we have arrived, history now begins. And we take this notion that we plant seeds, that we are the stewards of seeds, that we are the savers and sellers and givers of life through seeds. And I just would love to push back on that for just a moment. Here's a poem that my dear friend Maddie wrote, inspired by Robin Wall Kimmerer and her book, Braiding Sweetgrass. It's called Playing Family. Oh, how many ways have I declared, okay, I'll be the mother. You are my children. I've told this to beloved plants in playing English. I've sung it in soft songs and whispered it into watering cans. I've proclaimed it by putting out pollination kits and seed sieves. I've announced this motherhood with disproportionate conviction, like a child, stomp teetering through fields on oversized high heels, which dangle tentatively from her flexed feet with every step. She is so yet convinced the world believes her. Meanwhile, wind rustling, the plants shake their leaves with loving laughter, as if to say how precious, how adorable our little sister. So yes, I love to imagine that it is pure folly for me to believe that I plant seeds to plant these gardens. I love to remember that these seeds plant me, that these plants grow me more than I grow them, reminding me to go into the darkness, to break open that seed coat, to trust the ground beneath me, to know that I'm not alone, whether it is the tiniest spore of mycorrhizae, whether it is a worm, a nematode, whether it is the rain falling. There are 1,000 ways to garden. And I plant these seeds so that I can plant myself, believing that another world is possible, that adaptation, that change is somehow possible. And it's a faith of possibility. It's a faith of adaptability. It's a faith of the courage to grow, of deep connection, of deep relation, of deep humility, that we might be in service of growth and nourishment greater than our need for calories. So friends, let us do the same. Let's not settle for the narratives that keep us looking for leaders, because we are all leaders now. And let us not settle for these stories that proclaim solutions, because good questions, like good leaders, only make more of them. And let's not pretend, as I'm sure none of you do, and I see so often across our public spheres right now, that food, let us not pretend that food is apolitical, that gardens, that anything is apolitical. Let's learn to speak truth to power, to holding ourselves and each other accountable in love, and let us believe in every person's inherent worth and dignity, of deep value of every seed, of everything. This inherent value coming from a place of love and of trust. Let us activate our light with a capital O and a capital L, so that we can, or lowercase l, and our light with a lowercase o and a lowercase l, so that we can activate our light, our collective light, with a capital O, capital C, and a capital L. And I would love to continue this conversation, friends, knowing that these are conversations our species has shared over the seeds themselves for 10,000 years and counting. And thank goodness for those ancestors who loved us enough to save them and to share them, not only the seeds, but these wisdom and the stories of how we can too save and grow and share these seeds, be surrounded by that abundance and share that abundance with all generations yet to come. So I'd love just finally to thank you, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua, and thank you all who have known me since the beginning of UUCC, and here you are continuing to grow me and grow UUCC with all of this adaptability, all of this faith. That you know what it's like to have been buried in the darkness and to have risen as an individual, but also as a community of faith. And I also just would love, it sends shivers down my spine, the people here today watching live and the people watching this recording who have never met me yet. I can't wait to give you a huge hug after the pandemic passes. And to be building that beloved community with you. I love that we are people old and new, and seeds old and new. growing gardens that are only old and only new if we forget about this continuum of time. So thank you all for growing me and believing in me. We have created a beautiful garden together, friends. And I would love to continue this conversation and to continue to grow gardens in service of this love that we hold and share, and that we are nourished by, and that we would continue to nourish. Thank you, friends.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arise. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these sunken eyes and learn to see. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to be free. Blackbird fly. Blackbird fly into the light of a dark black night. Blackbird fly. Blackbird fly into the light of a dark black night. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise.
Some final words, another poem. This time, Wendellberry. But Bill, oh my gosh, I love you so much. Thank you. This, friends, is one of my favorite poems of all time, and I'd love to invite you to think and imagine, if you can, a sycamore tree. And perhaps you have one that you're especially fond of. I know I do. But perhaps you can imagine one as Wendell is describing it. This poem is called The Sycamore. In the place that is my own place, whose earth I am shaped in and must bear, there is an old tree growing. A great sycamore that is a wondrous healer of itself. Fences have been tied to it, nails driven into it, hacks and whittles cut in, the lightning has burned it. There is no year it has flourished in that has not harmed it. There is a hollow in it that is its death, though living brims whitely at the lip of the darkness and flows outward. Over all its scars have come the seamless white of the bark. It bears the gnarls of its history healed over. It has risen to a strange perfection in the warp and bending of its long growth. It has gathered all accidents into its purpose. It has become the intention, the radiance of its own dark fate. It is a fact, sublime, mystical, and unassailable. In all the country, there is no other like it. And I recognize in it a principle, an indwelling, the same as itself and greater that I would be ruled by. I see that it stands in its place and feeds upon it as it is fed upon, and is native and maker. I would only add before our final hymn that this indwelling, this principle that I would be ruled by, that is greater than myself, is one that I call love. And I can't wait to hear what you call it. And in the meantime, let's sing about it.
Our closing hymn is Love Will Guide Us.
All right. And now is the part of our service where we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. And may we nurture the seeds which we plant together with love. These we care in our hearts until we are together again.